Hello, everyone. My name is Ekaterina Kardakova. I'm an opera singer, voice, and public speaking coach. This is the 12th episode of my podcast, The Sound of Success. And I'm so grateful for the guest today, the Sage Brewer, with whom we will talk about the power of community and how the community can help you to to be and to find the answers for your issues and questions when you move to another country, and not only, and also how to build long-term relationships if you are traveling alone. So Sage is an expert in Berlin, and she is a founder of Health Tech and Psych Network. So, Sage, hello. Thank you very much for joining me today. We are talking about
Hello.
community, and you are the best one to talk about because you were traveling for so long, and you lived so in three countries, and now you're in Berlin. So you know the feeling when you have to start from scratch in a new country, and you know that it's not always easy. For example, like you told me just before we started the recording, that the paperwork and the bureaucracy in Berlin is just hilarious. It can be frustrating. I know the feeling. However, can you tell me what was the most challenging, in which country was most challenging situation for you to start with, and how you find the solution?
Hmm. Yeah. I would say aside from Berlin's immigration, I would say Croatia was pretty challenging to get started in because of the language barrier. I would say because of they can be a little bit nationalistic. S People moving to Croatia is a newer thing. They weren't so popular except for within the last 10 years. They suddenly have increased in global attraction and tourism. So their culture isn't really, mm, it's hard to say that they're not welcoming. They are, but they aren't. They're hospitable, but at the same time, they don't want to be inviting new people from different countries. Um, so I found that quite challenging. They, especially when you're applying for the paperwork, you're getting firstly, they also implemented the digital nomad visa, which is like a new thing in the last couple of years. And that is so new that the paperwork they were giving me wouldn't be recognized by maybe every border officer. So while I was waiting, while I applied for this visa and I was waiting, if I attempted to leave the country, there's a chance that when I come back in, the border officer wasn't up to date with this visa and maybe would refuse to let me back in. So that was a 6 month waiting process before I finally got an answer, and then they approved me to stay for a year from there. But overall, I would say as using the community to help me in that process, there was like a WhatsApp group chat, and just kind of explaining your problem to different people. And when you do that, eventually someone comes up with a better answer. Very often you might hear, "Oh, I don't know how to help you. Oh, yeah, this is what happens." But eventually, when you've shared your issue with enough people in the community, someone has a better answer for you.
Yeah, and that's why now actually you are creating, you moved to Germany, you're pretty fresh, like
Mhm.
about 6 months ago, and you immediately started to create your own community for health tech psych networking. So, how is your also psychological perspective? Why now you immediately started to invest in the power of community and also with the very specific topics such as health, tech, and psych? I think in Berlin we also, since a couple of years, maybe 2, 3 years, really have this, how to say, strong, I would not use the word hype, but strong issues after the corona, time
Mhm.
periods where we were a long time, almost 2 years locked down. We've got all over Germany, but especially in Berlin, these issues with psych and health.
Mhm.
So, and you're also very passionate about, because you studied it and also worked in America.
Yeah.
So tell me about your network. Why do you really now invest immediately in building your own network? What are the advantages in your opinion?
Oh, big advantages for sure. Really, I started it, I guess, from a place of loneliness. Because as you know from the immigration process, I came here sponsored on a position, and I was like, well, I just have to wait. I can't start with what I'm doing. So what do I do? I don't, and I had been traveling for so long in different countries that I was ready, like emotionally, to get back into the field of health and tech. And I love psychology on my own. And it's all too easy today, I would say, to sit down and get on your laptop and pull up Reddit and start researching these topics. And I'm like, well, I would love to talk with people about these topics and meet people in the community. And so I just posted on Facebook, hey, does anybody work in health and tech and psychology? Would you like to meet at a cafe? And that was the start of it. I didn't expect 10 people would show up for that. And then people were asking, well, this is a great initiative. How often do you host these meetings? And I was like, well, it's just supposed to be like this one meeting to make some friends. But why not try it? And so I started having these weekly meetups, and people from different backgrounds started attending, therapists, yogis, IT experts, AI experts. And actually, because a lot of them are expats, I was finding that they were able to give a lot of support for the immigration process. Hey, you should try this. So it wasn't like my intention when I started this group to get that kind of support, but it really ended up being a lot more supportive than expected. And then they said, well, it would be great if we had speakers and recruiters come to these meetups. And I was like, well, let me organize something like that. So I ended up organizing that. And because like you said, health tech is not such a huge thing in Berlin. It attracted a lot of attention. I had almost 100 people sign up for the event yeah. So I started getting worried actually because I knew like the room had a max capacity and I was like, oh, well, let's see how many people we can fit. So really the room, it ended up being at Kiersbro. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. My German's not great. But it ended up maxing out the capacity of the room. There was not a chair for me to sit in, which is great. It has become, since they opened in November, it's been the largest event that they've had so far at the facility. So that's great. And now it's become this kind of a community energy where people are coming to me, hey, I've heard about your network. People are wanting to collaborate with me professionally. I'm meeting people through that who can help me with my immigration process and can help each other with starting up their companies. So, what was just meant to be getting to know a few people has now turned into something a lot greater than that.
This is a very, very good initiative. And as you see, 100 people already signed up for an event.
Yeah.
So many people came. It means that you are not alone in
Mhm.
Berlin with the same issues. However, what do you think? How from the psychological perspective and health perspective, these communities and first of all, long-term relationship can influence the life of immigrants? Because, however, from my perspective, in Berlin there is a lot of action. Every evening you can go to so many different events, whatever you want, to any topics. So many people, and people really like to meet because Berlin nowadays, if you would know Berlin 10 years ago, it was a completely different city. Gray, depressive, and
Really?
um, yeah, it was completely different. Completely different. I think that Berlin
Wow.
has changed like in last 8 years and got so international like it's now. There are lots of expats living there and feeling like you said, pretty lonely, no? Because of the language barrier and all this paperwork and blah blah blah, many struggles and difficulties. However, I noticed that many people go to the network. You can go every day to a network, you can eat there,
Mhm.
chat with people. However, all this chatting, they are a little bit superficial. Yeah, like it's like, I don't know what to do tonight, so I go to an event and I meet people, but it doesn't mean that I really invest in this long-term relationship.
Mhm.
And I'm a person, I think you too, we are people who love to invest in the long term. Doesn't matter where we are. We have met many people in different countries, and we really know how to. Why is it so important to invest in a long-term relationships? What do you think? What is the psychological perspective as an expat? Because I cannot say
Mm.
about myself that I in Germany I'm an expat. I'm an expat for the last 21 years, okay? So not like an expert anymore. But for you, like you're really fresh in Germany and you are interested in psych and health. Tell me why you and people should invest in a long-term relationships and be active in the communities.
Yes, I'm glad you asked. Yeah, I would say it's an attitude. I knew that I didn't want to go back to the US. I knew I wanted to stay abroad. And your connections mean everything in getting you integrated. Um, of course, over time, I've had to learn which connections to hold on to and which ones to let go of, which ones are um, healthier and supporting my goals. Um, but I would say that is the mistake people can often make when they want to move abroad, is they're maybe having a very Matthew McConaughey actually made a comment about this, and I thought his comment was great. He said a lot of us, when we invest in relationships, we act like we're renting instead of buying. And when you act like you're renting, you plan to let it go and you plan to give it back. And you're not really giving it your all. And therefore, you're also not getting the best out of the experience. But if you act like you're buying in a relationship, you're going to get the best version of that person. You're going to give the best of yourself. And hopefully, then you're actually learning real lessons from the relationship that can improve your next relationships. Let's say if something doesn't work out. And I say this applies to friendships as well. So this, I would say it applies to relationships for me all over my travels. I've made friends, mostly I used couch surfing because those are more open-minded people to host me instead of hostels. Um, and because of that attitude and because of my willingness to be vulnerable and ask people for help and explain my struggles, through that and trial and error, I've found the people who want to be my supporters and want to help me through those challenges. So now I have best friends in Scotland. He's actually coming to visit me in a couple of days. We've been friends now for 3 years because I stayed with him in Edinburgh. I have a friend in Glasgow who, after this call, I'm going to be talking to him. I have a friend in the Netherlands. So all of these kinds of connections, and I have all these Russian friends in Vietnam, no, in Thailand. So I have all these connections all over the world. And because I have given so much of myself to these relationships, it's given back to me also. I would say before this, before the pandemic even, I was so focused on my academics that I really wasn't invested in relationships. And so when the pandemic hit, oh my God, it felt like I had no friends around me to support me. I'd only had my family to turn on. And that's where I really learned to shift my priorities and invest all of my attention into relationships. So yeah, you can apply for all the jobs and this and that in society, whatever. You can spend all of your time on the computer submitting LinkedIn, Easy Apply, whatever. That's not going to be as valuable as your connections.
Absolutely, I totally agree. Could you give three short recommendations to people who would like in a new country to find new friends, new maybe project partners, cooperations? Can you give three tips? How to, first of all, don't be too shy to come up to people and say, "Hi, how are you? Let's talk a little bit and chat." And then develop, go deeply and invest in this long-term relationship.
Yes, for sure. So with just relationships or also with getting a company or something like that?
Any kind of relationship.
Okay. I would say I've learned it comes down to understanding that person's intention. So like not only are they open to a connection, but why are they interested in a connection with
So
you?
this is number one tip to
Yeah.
understand the intention. Hmm.
Yes, understand the intention. I would say trust your intuition. Everybody says that, but it takes so much trial and error to be like, oh, that was my intuition and I didn't listen to it. And I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Um, so I would say that's probably number two. And advice, mm, I have to think about how I do it. Because now, whenever you do it so much, it just becomes like second nature. Um, I would say to be meeting people in the right places. Um, because I could, and I'm not saying that you can't find great people when you're out partying and clubbing. But if your ultimate goal is to get a good job or something like that, you should be going to networking events and paying attention to where you're meeting these people. Um, and if you're bumping into the same person at multiple locations, and so your paths are intersecting, the more repeated connection and exposure you have to an individual, the more likely you are to form a bond. So I would say then try to connect with those people who are in alignment with your long-term goals. And yeah, if people aren't aligned with your values and goals, then be picky about where you invest your energy.
And the third one,
Oh, third one. Okay. Um, Let me think about that. So we said what were the two that I've said already? It was
first is an intention, second,
uh,
listen to your intuition,
uh,
and
okay.
go depends on your own intention. Go to a communities where you really want to find the right people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Finding a community. I would also say then pay attention with when it comes to energy. What has helped me a lot is being willing to help others because people will appreciate that. Even if it's something small, if they say, "Hey, Sage, can you help me with this favor?" Or if you find a way that you can help someone, it's going to show a lot about your character, and it's going to make them interested in connecting with you. But also make sure that they would be willing to help you. Give them some small achievable task and ask them just some small favor. And if they're doing that, it's a sign that they're willing to invest in you, and that's a relationship that you can continue working towards with someone. So I think that's something I do with people when I meet them. Okay, I've met this person. Okay, we seem to have a lot of things in common. Okay, let me help them in this small way. Okay, now I'm gonna ask a tiny favor of them and see if they were willing to help me out. Okay, now we've developed a connection, so we can keep going from there.
Yeah. However, long-term relationships and the communities can help very much if you're an expat and if you want to move to another country and you're just checking if this country is suitable for you. Can you find the right activity or a job or whatever you want to do in this country? And first of all, I'm always saying, I also lived in four countries. The most important investment in your life is not necessarily money, but or
Mhm.
people. I call it social currency because
Yeah.
people buy from people. If you want to get a promotion, you should invest in connections. But really, as you said, the third thing, it should be it should be honest. It should be
Yeah.
really with big willingness to with big interest to
Hmm.
learn about this person, to help this person, to create a long-term relationship. And in my reason or my previous last meetups, I always say in my videos on YouTube and podcasts, we always say like invest in the people. This is the only currency in these troubled times we are living now. This is the
Yes.
best social currency is number one and it goes and stays much higher than even money, gold, whatever. That's
Yeah.
why I really appreciate your time and conversation and the knowledge and experience you shared. I hope that people will also watch this episode and also share their experience in another country. It's so interesting, always interesting to read the comments and the stories of other people, how they conquered all these challenges and what they did, and how much they invest in the communities, how they built the long-term relationships in different countries. Always interesting to read. Sage, thank you so much for your time. Very interesting podcasts, your experience, your knowledge, your expertise. And yeah, for those one who watched this podcast, thank you very much for your thumbs up. Share this video to everyone who wants to create the community or needed a community, because Sage can. I will leave the contacts of Sage in the description, so you can immediately connect with Sage if you want to visit her network in Berlin, or maybe also online.
Yes.
And subscribe to my channel, share this podcast, like it, help us also to spread this episode with your likes and comments. Thank you very much. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being my guest today, Sage. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. It was great to talk.